Excellence has no gender. Break the bias. Hi, I'm Jacquelyn Ekwueme, the Technical Program Manager working in Microsoft at the African Development Center. I would say it all started when I was in university. I read computer science in school and I had to do a mandatory internship in my fourth year. And so I did that internship in a computer training institute. And while I spent time there, it became clear to me that there was a difference in the real world application of the concepts we're learning in school and what we're doing at the lab classes we had. So it was clear to me that I needed to, get more time on a PC outside in the real world. And so when I was done with school, I immediately did a computing course in information systems management while waiting for my NYSC call-up. And luckily for me, during my NYSC, I was posted to an organization that had a sister arm that was really big on building content management websites. That was a big thing back in the days because a lot of Nigerian companies were just becoming aware of the online world and were trying to create, an internet presence. And so I was deeply interested in what that company was doing. And the owner of the company was so gracious. He gave me a ton of resources that I could use to learn. And I was also in an environment where I could actually begin to apply the things I was learning. And shortly after my youth service, I got a job in UVA as a contract analyst on a project. And that project was working on automating processes in a particular business area. And I seemed to be so fascinated with what the software engineers were doing. And every day I would go and sit down with the lead developer on the project and ask him a ton of questions. And he could see that I was deeply interested in the work they were doing. It was quite interesting that, a complex problem would be brought and they would break it down and come up with high impact solutions that could fix that problem. And I would say an opportunity finally presented itself when the project manager needed to come up with an MVP, a quick win for a process that was being automated, the onboarding process. And the lead developer mentioned that they should assign that particular deliverable to me. I was very nervous. I'd never had to, do my own project before, but he was quite confident in my capabilities and he did give me a ton of resources. He made a clone of his repo and gave it to me and told me to start building. And I started working on it every day. That was my work challenge. I would come to work and try to, step through the different logic in the code and all of that. And eventually, when I had issues, he would be there to help unblock me. Eventually, I was able to conclude on the project and delivered on the job. And as they say, the reward for a job well done is more work. So I began to get a ton of processes to keep automating, and even though the project didn't work out well, because I had added a lot of value to the team, I still wasn't qualified to join the bank, but I got hired into a full-time position and I started working in the technology team. And I spent, I would say, a lot of time, maybe 12 years of my career, working in different roles in the software development lifecycle and evolving until I left to another financial institution to lead their software engineering team, which for me, I would say was also a great experience. I was probably the first female to lead that team in that organization. And afterwards, I moved, when the organization was acquired, I moved into another position as a program manager, and I heard that Microsoft was coming into Africa to build up a development center, and in my mind I said, yes, this is a field I've been focused on. I've been working in this area, over the past 13 to 15 years. There's no reason why I wouldn't find a position here that I could work in. And I did go online to do some research. I found out that there were open positions and I applied to a few of them and I got called and hired into one of them, and that's has been my journey so far. In the software engineering field, which has historically been dominated by male, I would say part of the reasons are because of a lack of representation of females in the boardroom, where decisions are being made. A lot of people do not get to see people that look like them to be able to aspire to and model their careers after. So if we have more females, a lot more female representation in the leadership teams, in the boardrooms, that would help a lot more people to have that as something they can aspire to. Another thing would be the culture. There's some roles that are culturally perceived to be more male dominated and maybe a man's thing, but I think if we as both genders, both male and female, if we begin to encourage more people to participate by creating programs, creating, sponsoring, mentoring people, that would, encourage people to, come in and also partake. For me, I would say personally, in my own experience, a lot of the opportunities I had were created by males because I was probably the only female in my organization. As a matter of fact, when I started working as a software engineer, I was the only female for, I would say, 7 years on the team before another female, came to join the team, which for me was such a refreshing, experience. So, creating those opportunities as male created those opportunities for me to come in, even though I was the only female at that point in time, in that space, to come in and also, help me thrive and succeed in that role and position. I do not think there are any physical or health challenges that currently restrict, women from excelling in the tech industry. I know back in the days we used to have a lot of, let's say, archaic ideologies that women get less productive, particularly when they start raising families. But that is not the case. I have gone through the process. I think I'm even at my most productive right now, and I also have a ton of females, who I work with in the team that are also raising families and thriving. They do take time off. We're lucky that in this day and age, the organizations we work for are a lot flexible and give us the time off that we need to take care of, things that matter to us at the home front, and also focus on work that gives us, fulfillment. Right now in the technology industry, a lot of things have changed. There's a lot more opportunities that are being provided, particularly for women who are interested in the industry. When I started out a few years ago, I had mentioned that I was the only one in my field, and back then, we didn't have as many opportunities as are available these days to women when I was early in career. So right now, I would say in places like my organization, we do have resource groups that are focused on, female initiatives for women in tech. We have mentorship programs. We have conferences, things like the Grace Hopper Conference, the Women in Technology Global Conference, where you have a lot of trailblazers and leaders in the industry that come together to share their stories, share their journey, mentor younger ones, give people opportunities. We also have locally, I noticed we have a lot of, opportunities, initiatives. People come up with different programs that are focused and targeted at increasing female representation in the industry, and people like us who are already here and didn't have the opportunity, we know how beneficial this is. We see how it is very helpful, and we're always there to give back by volunteering, to also mentor, and just generally keep the door open for others to, come through and do even greater things and exploits than we have done. So I am optimistic about the future of female representation in tech. The tides are changing a lot. When I started out in my career, I was the only female on my team for 7 years, but a decade and a half later, the new team that I joined when I moved into Microsoft had an equal representation of female and male engineers on the team, 8 all locally hired from Nigeria. So I believe a lot of all the programs that are out there tailored to increasing female representation has actually started taking effect, and we can see that effect in the talent we have out there in the market. So there are a lot more females out there, working in the software engineering discipline. So for work-life balance strategies, I would say I still juggle that a lot. On the life front, I'm lucky that I have, I would say, a supportive family. My husband probably works twice as hard as I do. A lot of times when I shut down at midnight, I see that he's still up even at 3 a.m., working. And for my children, they're very vocal, when it comes to demanding attention and family time. So that always keeps me in check when I tend to get overwhelmed with work. I also have a lot of supportive carers in my family, and we do know our hard limits and make sure that we're not too, finicky and strict about things that we really don't have control over. So that helps us get by on the life front. And in the workplace, I would say I'm really lucky that I work in an organization where the employees' well-being is really prioritized by the leaders. So there's also a lot of flexibility in the work we do. So I'm able to decide, when and where I can, do work that's involved in. Okay, so I would share 3 successful career moments I've been proud of. The first was when I worked in UBA, working on automating their processes in a particular division, and the tool that we came up with, it became a benchmark to compare other tools in the market that were developed by, the big enterprises. So working on that tool was one of the highlights of my career. And the second one I would mention was leading the software engineering team in the next financial institution I worked with. I had a crop of bright and really talented engineers. We had over 70 software engineering projects we're working on concurrently, and the job was being done. And the third one I would say was setting up a program management team in the African Development Center in a new business area that was something I had never done before. Those are the 3 highlights I can share from my career journey. Peggy's Piggy Bank, my book. Yeah, that's my personal passion, I would say. So I am really and deeply interested in, children learning about financial habits. What I've come to discover over time is that, what we do when it comes to our personal finance really matters more than, what we learn. So I started creating this literacy series for kids, trying to break down, concepts of saving and investing, and looking at insurance, in stories that's easily relatable to kids. So it's something I do on the side. I also use it in my house. I use it to teach my kids about managing their personal finances, and I see that it's actually paying off because they're really conscious when it comes to money matters. And I think I also give out the books to to their classmates, at any opportunities I have to kind of spread the word out there too. Some words of advice I would give, three things. The first one would be focused. There are a lot of distractions out there. A lot of things would come to derail you, but always remember your why you're involved in this thing in the first place, and that would keep you, going and consistent in what you're doing. I would also say be courageous. There's always a challenge out there. There's always something that needs to be explored that hasn't been done before. So take that leap of faith and raise your hand and do it. If you fail, that's a learning experience. If you succeed, that's a stepping stone to greater things. And lastly, I would say be curious. Be interested in the things that are happening around you, particularly in those areas that seem like they are male dominated. Get interested. Try to find out what's going on in areas that you're not familiar with. Demonstrate your growth mindset. That will open up a lot of opportunities that you had previously not thought about, and give you opportunities to explore new fields.